Another way. Erasmus Plus program. Cooperation for innovation and the exchange of good practices. Ka2 Strategic Partnership for Europe. Funded by EU. Number 2019-2-IT 03-KA205-016466. Co-funded by the Erasmus Plus program of the European Union. Mediterranea. Associazione per lo sviluppo locale. This work is licensed under the Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share Alike 4.0 International License. To view a copy of this license, visit http://creativecommons.org or send a letter to Creative Commons, P.O. Box 1866, Mountain View, CA 94042, USA. Peraltravia Anotherway. An original method by Francesco Piccolo. Module 4. Peraltravia Anotherway. Lessons 1 and 2. The origin. This last module has necessarily undergone some changes following the latest events related to COVID-19. You can imagine the reason why. We at Peraltravia Anotherway give great value on people and community. How will we as individuals come out of this experience, and how will our local communities come out of it? How will it be possible to move around? Will we still want to travel, explore, get to know? Will there be tourism after this pandemic? I think so. The thirst for research and beauty is too great to be canked, but I would be naive to think that the same rules, the same parameters will apply as before. The very modalities of fruition in museums or structure of a tour will have to take into consideration the new events and the changes they will bring to our daily life. Which number will be allowed or, on the contrary, considered dangerous? Above all, how will touch devices be normalized? Therefore, I think it is useful to give you only those indications, those parts of the method that will remain intact, postponing other indications that I will have to remodel on the basis of what will happen after April. They are more of a practical and operational indication, which, however, I think it would be useful to give you now. In this project, moreover, we are experimenting on a large scale with a method that is already experimental in itself, and therefore, precisely for this reason, it has parts that need to be increased and adapted. The first itinerary I designed in collaboration with some friends, including the tourist guide Angela Acquaviva, dates back to November 2015. It took about 6 months before we could present it to blind and blindfolded people. In June 2016, this itinerary was featured in a national news bulletin. Only in September 2017, encouraged by the success of a second itinerary, I decided to create Peraltravia's blog. And in March 2019, I accepted that Mediterranea would be the subject of this project, which is the reason why I matched the Italian name with Anotherway's English one. On this occasion, therefore, I created the logo that you know. I have used the word I several times, but most of you know the lessons about my method. You have read my feedback to the given assignments. I hope the trainers made you read them. And someone has also participated on the platform in the discussion section to the other proposals. But in general, few people have an idea of who I am. My name is Francesco Piccolo. I have been a psychologist for 17 years, and I invented the Peraltravia Anotherway method 4 years ago. Why did I do it? I have always had a passion for art, especially cinema and theater. Over the past 16 years as a psychologist, I have often used art as a language of communication with my patients, of analysis of their feelings. I believe that art is the highest form of human communication, and it is everyone's right to use it. About 10 years ago, I met a blind painter friend. An important meeting that, together with another personal experience, started the creative process that led to Anotherway. Back to the logo. I'm sorry if someone ruined the surprise by talking about it earlier than necessary, but I think this is the right place where I, who designed and realized it, talk about it to you, who have been using it for months. I aimed to graphically represent the guiding principle of Peraltravia Anotherway. Linear signs for complex realities. Colors are red, which is dominant and expresses the matrix as well as Italian language, and black, English language, to provide a wider framework of application and validation of the method. At the top right of the graphic representation are reported in Braille code the same head letters, which build up the logo Peraltravia Anotherway. At the bottom, the full name side by side, Italian in red and English in black. The red capital A rotates upside down, giving rise to the red V. From the center of the same capital letter, a second black V starts, intersecting the red V and forming the W of way. The crossing of the two V is isolated by the two white and parallel strokes, which isolate the multiplication sign per. This crossing is the essence of the logo, and thus of the method. It represents a scramble pedestrian crossing, a specific road sign that stops the traffic and allows each pedestrian to cross the street in the most congenial direction. This is what is proposed: to allow achieving the beauty through any sensory pathway. In the previous lessons, I have already given some specific indications, but perhaps it is good to summarize them again, so that it is easier to continue. Let's start by looking for the words that have titled the 4 modules in this logo. The first one, who, concerns the person as part of a community and is at the heart of the logo itself. With this method, I try to give the possibility to who is on one side of the street to reach the beauty, the history, the identity that is on the opposite side to his. To do this in every possible way. So, a Peraltravia Anotherway tour is a scramble pedestrian crossing. The second word is hosts, and it is all about doing tourism in an ethical and accessible way. Regarding accessibility, the logo, in particular the version inserted in the intros of the videos, respects
the principle of universal design, at least in its phonological aspect. I explain that red and black make up the initials of the same name in two different languages, Italian and English. In particular, English takes the dominance by grafting on Italian. At the top, I placed the two initials, A from another and W from way, in Braille code. This attention would be hypocritical and useless since Braille is a tactile read-write code. So I thought these two letters could be translated into another code, the Morse code, which sighted and blind people can know. The musical note, repeated at different intervals at the end of the intro, indicates A and W. This action, the translating, is the subject of the third module, which has through as keyword. Use different codes to convey the same message and widen the audience as much as possible. This is an important aspect. Using the other senses to convey a perception that is essentially visual is not obvious. Not everything can be communicated and passed on by other means. It requires commitment, creativity, knowledge. You need skills that are difficult to find in a single person. That's why it is essential to understand that to make a Peraltravia Anotherway tour, you need a team. So, it makes sense that you are a class and that you have been asked to do assignments together. We, myself and the trainers whom I thank, are trying to make you a team that creates tours using this specific method. The English name of the method is the keyword for the fourth and final module, Another Way. First of all, we define Peraltravia Anotherway. It is a method to conceive and realize tours, especially of a historical artistic type, which therefore require the presence of local guides. The perspective is that of a meeting between different identities. That of the tourist meets, that of the community that hosts the tourist himself. The concept of personal and community identity is extremely important. Peraltravia Anotherway is a method that sees beauty as a product and mirror of a community identity, created by the overlapping of stories and pieces of art. It is such an identity that you want to reach by other means through the experience of beauty. This experience of beauty does not happen, however, through sight, but through the other four senses: hearing, taste, smell, and touch. This allows both blind and visually impaired people to participate in these tours. The first ones are because they are deprived of the visual faculty and therefore interested in tours that do not try to describe what they see, but to make them experience the object itself, the piece of art, in another way. For the sighted, instead, it is a new experience to be done blindfolded, to appreciate the evocative and investigative power of the other senses. On the marked development of a sense at the expense of the others, it should be underlined that this aspect unites the sighted and the blind. To make it as simple as possible, we could say that what sight does for the sighted, touch does for the blind. Without tact, they could not read, for example, or explore the world around them, as would happen to sighted people without sight. Hearing, taste, smell are therefore the main senses that a Peraltravia Anotherway operator will refer to when designing a tour. Is touch excluded? No, obviously not, but it is marginalized in order to increase the evocative power of the other senses. We know by now that the synergy between the senses, or it would more appropriate to speak of syncrasies of more perceptive stimuli, acts in our daily life and allows us to grasp the depth and not only the appearance of things. The taste, and in particular the sense of smell, create vivid memories that arouse intense emotions. We have already talked about the relationship between emotions, mind, and memory. Module 1. Remember? We, at Peraltravia Anotherway, want to provide people who are on holiday with an experience of the place where they are. This experience, that is our tour, is something similar to an inner journey, because When you meet beauty, like a piece of art or a nature scenario, a landscape, this meeting changes your mind. It changes your point of view. What you felt during your tour becomes a part of you. We are talking now about identity, personal identity of tourist and community identity of the nation, region, county or city that host the tourist. Our identity as a community meets the tourist's personal identity. But there is no identity without memory. So, a particularly important concept is that of collective memory. What we actually present to tourists are the traits of this memory. They are the remnants of the common past that originated our land as we live it today, and they are imprinted on canvas, on stone, in the idioms, in what we eat. We cannot ignore these remains. Let us suppose that at the end of this emergency, we can no longer shake hands when we say goodbye or sign an agreement. What gesture will take its place? How many works of art, photos, paintings, statues have as their object the shaking of hands or the kiss of equal dignity? How will this event change us, and how will our grandchildren explain it to a coming tourist? In communist countries, for example, political leaders kissed each other on the mouth, as medieval men did, to indicate precisely relations of equal dignity, of brotherhood, where neither was superior to the other. This gesture disappeared, remaining only as a sign of intimacy between lovers, or, at most, as a preliminary to sexual intercourse. Would anyone who saw this understand us even without the right cultural reference? What about the comment below? My God, help me to survive this deadly love. I say this to emphasize that it is not enough to know a place or be part of it to create a tour. It requires a careful and in-depth study of the history of the place, of what of previous centuries has survived in current customs and traditions, as well as in the very composition of the place, in its toponymy. The craft activities have their own meaning. Why are there in one place more tanneries, in another more carpenters, in other cotton mills or cabinet makers? How do you explain to a tourist that if you take one step forward, you are in Slovenia, and if you take one step backwards on the same square of the same ancient city, you are in Italy? Piazza della Transalpina, Gorizia, Nova Gorica. The square you have just seen is the emblem of the absurd post-war politics of the Second World War. In 1947, almost 14 years before the Berlin Wall, it was decided that part of the city of Gorizia was to pass to Tito's Yugoslavia, while the rest would be Italian. The Transalpina station square remained half Italian, and the rest, including the station, became the first nucleus of Nova Gorica. A red brick restaurant became the border checkpoint. Now we should ask ourselves, who would want to make a tour in Gorizia? Could it not matter what martyrdom this city suffered throughout the 1900s? How the great history of Europe has shaped the city we see today? What remains of its ancient splendor? Italian, Slavic, Habsburg city? What about us? Are we sure that we know exactly our city, the county where we live? Why certain things are done this way and not in another way? Why does this Easter recipe have these ingredients and the other Christmas ones? Why is the pliers of Gorizia so similar to the Cuzzupa of Cosenza and the Jewish Challah? Why confetti, typical Italian candies, are used during Carnival in Limassol, but not in all Italian cities? A series of questions. I am aware of this. We need to ask ourselves about our own or other people's origins if we want to talk about them to tourists. The origins are the heart of every tour. By making a Peraltravia Anotherway tour, we take on the responsibility of talking about an entire community, as if we were presenting it to tourists. Are we going to tell them everything? Almost certainly not. We must not have the presumption of knowing every aspect of the place we are touring, but we must be sure that our idea is based on a serious professional study, that what we offer the tourist is authentic. This authenticity is directly related to our ability to offer a tailor-made product and not a serial one. Peraltravia Anotherway is in fact a sartorial method. Each performance, each proposal is designed, built, and verified in that specific historical, socio-cultural context. We must pay attention to each of these phases, using all the skills we have personally and as a team. I would say that it is very unlikely, indeed almost impossible, that you can make such a tour relying only on your own strengths and abilities. We need teamwork, which is why every assignment and every feedback I gave you required teamwork. And when the team didn't find the right harmony, the results were less brilliant than when the group worked with more unity. In this lesson, the images are used for educational purposes only, and for the most part are original. Those for which it has been possible to identify the source are mentioned in the image itself. For the others, the author remains available to give credit to any rights holders who request it, using the following address: peraltravia@gmail.com.